Hey everybody, we are live and we like to welcome you back to episode 51 of Holly Lennox. We have a lot of great things, a lot of surprises for this show this week. I'm really excited because it took me for a loop as well. So we'll be doing a little things different a little this week. So don't worry about it. Hold on to your seats. You already know I'm going to tell you to have your notebooks ready, pen, pencil, paper, tablet, get all that ready so you can jot down some notes. I hope you have your snacks and your water and all that type of stuff because you know when we have a special guest, Tam likes to dig all the way in. So, also questions in the chat. Without further ado, we're going to have a word from our sponsor.
Hey everybody, welcome to Women in Linux. I am Tam and Dee is in the background, and we just want to share with you some of the perks of being here on our channel. All right, so first things first, if you want to connect with us on social media, connect with us anywhere on social media at Women in Linux. If that's just too much for you, you can always come and find us on womeninlinux.org. And if that's not enough, we have even more perks where you can hit the connect button. Once you hit connect button, you put your email address in here, and once you put your email address in here, it'll connect with us in our Slack group. We have tons of resources in our Slack group. People looking for jobs, people just looking for advice, people looking for information, and so forth. Right. So again, this is Slack. It's not Discord. So on with using Slack, warn you, it is resource heavy. So you may need to use either the web browser or if you're on your phone, you should be fine. But if you're on your desktop, and we know most of you connect on your computer, it's easier to open it up in your web browser so it doesn't take up so much memory or so many processes and so forth. That's just an FYI. That's how I use it. Okay. And if you would like to shop with us, we still have our stuff from our 5 year stuff. Still good. We're working on more T-shirts. No, no estate, no date. We're still working on that. But again, if you want to shop and you want to get some merch, feel free to come here and get some merch. Again, if you come over here and click on all products, you'll see on all the products that we have, from hoodies to masks and so forth and so on. Right. And if that isn't good enough for you, you can donate. You can always donate with your time. You can donate with your money. So, how do you donate with your time? You donate with your time by saying, hey, I would like to do a presentation, or I like to volunteer on helping us grow the channel. You retweet, you share this with other members. In fact, for those of you that come here every single week, we know you come here every single week and you don't subscribe. That helps us grow the channel. That helps us get more content to you. Hey, research isn't easy. I'm not getting paid to do research. I wish it was at a university, but hey, I'm bringing this to you, right? I'm bringing this to you and us and for others, right? So if that doesn't work, you can always donate on PayPal by clicking the donate button. Once you hit the donate button, you have your own denominations in which you can donate. And if that doesn't work for you, you can always reach out to D and you can cut a check and send a check. That works for us as well. All right. So what are some other things that we actually do have as well? Right. So we have a discount with IT Pro TV. You get 30% off. I've used IT Pro TV myself. I've done interviews with them. I'll pull those up as well too. But as you can see, I'm logging into IT Pro TV. What are the benefits here? You need to learn how you learn. So one of the things you can do in IT Pro TV, you can come over here, you can click on courses, and it gives you a list of courses that's separating them out by certification and also separate them out by learning paths. You're like, Tamika, what does that mean? My four basic principles or my four basic foundations of skill sets that you should have is Linux. You should also have an automation tool, whether it's Terraform or Ansible. You should know at least a cloud. I don't care. Pick either one. And finally, last but not least, security. And security comes in multiple forms: security of the operating system, security of the application, and also security of containers, right? And cloud security. So it's multiple facets when we're talking about security. Those are your four basics that you're going to need to to get you a job and then move you up. All right. And we're going to talk about our membership here in another video, but I just want to get this out to you. All right. So that's 30% off of IT Pro TV. And last but not least, our Calendly. We have set up for our Calendly. Let me pull that up. I think I have it saved in my browser here, so I can just go straight to it. If not, I'll get it from D here. Here we go, right here. All right. So with Calendly, we have one-on-one sessions. That's where you get to talk to either me or D, and you can request either one. But where you get to talk to us in a one-on-one session, right? Interview prep. Some of you are getting ready for interviews, or you never interviewed before. We want to prep you for an interview. Resume review. Let's go over what you have, or let's pull all your skills together. Let's get things formatted properly. Let's get everything going. And last but not least, career assessment. What is your journey? What could it look like? What could you be going through? What are your next steps? Some of you are transitioning, some of you are not, some of you are looking to transition, and some of you are just trying to figure out what is your next step. So by saying all of this, we want you to enjoy your time here at Women in Linux. And also, as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the share button, and last but not least, thank yourself that you actually did it.
That
Okay,
was a word from
everybody.
our sponsor. And we're back. Tamika, tell us who you have with us.
I have me. I don't know this young fella here. That's actually what I was just playing. Who I have next to me is actually my best friend's husband, who's actually a senior network engineer. His name is Adrian Chaplin, and I said I've been asking him to come on the show for years. So I figured since
It's
we are
been a
here,
while.
it's been
It has been a while. But you know, Adrian, he's in the streets.
he's in
He's in these streets heavy.
he's in the streets,
He
honey.
is
Yeah,
the epitome of what we talk about what you gonna do with this tech money. What you gonna do with it?
he is in
Cool.
these streets. So I finally caught him and said, "Got to come on the show," and he is here. So
Thanks for having me.
you're welcome. So Adrian Chaplin, senior network engineer. Let's get started with what is a senior network engineer, and then we'll get into how'd you get into network engineering.
Yeah, I started with AOL, CompuServe, and in those days we were, just sending messages over the wire, and that's how I really started to get into communication management. So went to DeVry and got introduced to networking. When I was in school, we didn't know that networking existed, so it was like in its infancy. Cisco is now coming out, so we started learning the CLI routers, switches, and then after that, I was able to start building labs at home. That's how I really started to get into it, actually making the theory practical. So that's how I really kind of started into networking.
So when you say you were building labs at home, were you like going to it wasn't I don't know, was it Best Buy or Circuit City for you? What was it for you back
No,
then?
back then, it was taking computers apart and building them yourself.
Okay.
So I remember my first firewall was an old computer somebody had on the side of the street, and I threw a couple of NIC cards in it and threw Linux on it and IP tables, and that was my first firewall.
What? Did you say something about Linux? What? That thing there? Oh, that thing it keep coming right back up, right?
I
Mhm.
mean, I love how you guys are both DeVry graduates. Like that says a lot. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
go the traditional route. So
Yep.
I mean, Radio Shack, CompuServe, it was another one
AOL.
that was big that I used to go to as well. Best Buy has always been, there as well. But Radio Shack was the first electronics
Was
store
the
for
first.
me in my neighborhood that I would go
Absolutely.
to and get all my stuff. You can go get batteries at Radio Shack.
The funny story about Radio Shack for me was I have no idea why. But you know who introduced me to Radio Shack? My grandmama.
Mm.
My
I mean,
my
it was like your one shop stop for like electronics in the neighborhood. We had one in our neighborhood until till what the Nextel store, the Sprint store took it over. It was over here for a long time. It's kind of like Ace Hardware.
But
Like it's
my
just your
grandma,
neighborhood store.
she took me to, she would go to Radio Shack because every year they would have like beach balls and frisbees that they would give away. And so that was her way of getting me a beach ball or a frisbee to play with, right? But then while I would be in there in Radio Shack, she was like, go look at the toys that they got and play with them, right? And so that would be her outing for me. I was like, are we gonna stop at Radio Shack? And so we would stop at Radio Shack. So I grew up on going to Radio Shack to get little toys and stuff. But that was her way, I guess, of being, I guess if you want to look at it, being up on technology, because she was like, oh, they got these new TVs and stuff they coming out with and stuff like that. But she would never
I mean,
buy
they
anything.
had everything. Like my mother wasn't really a techie in the sense she's an educator, but I mean, we had like cutting edge technology when I was little, like the little black and white TVs that look like little radios. Like I
Mm-hmm.
had one of those. I had my speaking spell. My sister had like Teddy Ruxpin. Like we had all the electronic educational games, even when the portable TV had the long back and you have to plug it up in the car on road trips. I mean, we even had one of those.
I didn't have that.
Oh, my
I
mom
had,
had
I
one of
didn't even know about that.
Oh yeah,
I
my
did.
mom like my dad. I mean, they had the cell phone in the car or the cell phone that was in the
Yeah, we
little
had
luggage
cell
carrier,
phone.
in the little
Mm-hmm.
luggage carrier, and you're like, what the heck is that? But I like to tinker. Radio Shack was one of my places that I used to go. That in the thrift store to get the all the science stuff. I would love
Mm-hmm.
a good science kit. Oh,
No,
I had
no.
my first computer from Radio Shack, Tandy Sensation.
Tandy to say I had a Tandy TRS 80. You know that, but I could never use it
Why not?
because my mama said don't plug it, don't plug it up to my TV because it's gonna
You
mess
mess
up
it up.
my
Oh
TV.
my gosh.
wow.
Yes.
You gonna
Yeah,
mess
Yes.
up.
I had typewriters that became more advanced over time that were word processors that you had to like program in what you needed because I needed it for school. So we always had a great typewriter, but I never I didn't have a computer, my own computer, probably till maybe after college, my own computer, maybe
It
till
wasn't big.
after.
Computers wasn't big when we were coming up. It
No,
had just started
I didn't
being.
have my own. And I only had one friend in high school that had a computer. Only, and her mother got it for her so she could stay in the house. Like, here's something that you can do.
Most of us had word processors.
Yeah, I had a word processor.
I
Oh
had
yeah,
I didn't realize how early I was with computers, but we used to be in news groups. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
hyperterminal. I was
Mm-hmm.
young doing that.
IRC. Now, going from when you were young, were you always in computers
Always,
growing up? Okay.
always. I started into like electrical. I was always into technology. Always wanted to know how things work. Kind of took them
Mm-hmm.
apart. So I started in electrical and computer technology, and then from there, I got introduced to networking. And I realized, yeah, this is what I want to do.
All right. Now, when you and because we had this conversation the other night,
Mm-hmm.
you was like if you would have known what you knew about tech in terms of networking, you would have kind of bypassed a lot of things.
Oh yeah, my path, like now, you can just go on YouTube and figure out the fastest way to
Man,
get to what you like.
aren't these people blessed?
I didn't even know the end goal was networking, there was no real Google or anything like that. So when we started, you'll go to computers and go to a computer course for programming. So everything was programming. And that really wasn't my thing, I was more into communications, but I didn't know they had a field for that. So I started in electrical, and then from electrical, I got introduced to a networking course, and from there, I kind of stuck on that path. I stayed on that path.
Right. And I want to give a shout out to a blind guy and his wife and their life. Thank you for donating your $50 super chat. It means a lot to us, especially when y'all
it's
donate.
a donation. If it was a super chat, I'll be able to put it up on the screen. So that's why I'm shouting you guys out in the comment section, because usually for a super chat, I can put it on the screen. So
Right, we appreciate you. Now, okay, so back to in terms of network, being a senior network engineer. What about it drew you in for as networking versus programming?
I always like that I can have two machines and communicate or control one from here.
So
You
you
know,
like so what you're saying is you like control.
I like the remote management, and it's like networking is like a big playing field, right, where you can control traffic, right, and it just fascinated me. Like from here, from a terminal, I could shut down certain things and reroute traffic. So I really got into the networking communication where I could be at school and remote into my devices at home. I just love the communication part of it.
Did you ever hack anything?
Hack, no, but understood what's on the line. We could have, we've created situations like man in the
Mm,
middle attacks and things like that,
mm,
but in a lab environment,
mm.
nothing.
But
No,
nothing in school. You didn't
yeah,
shut down the school.
no, 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 no.
I don't think Adrian would tell
Wasn't
us
me.
on YouTube if
Being
he
the
did.
fifth on that.
All right, so now that you found networking, but what is the control? What because when I look at networking, right? Because I set up routers and switches
Mhm.
and so forth, and do my own labs and did my Cisco stuff. Did you go off and dive off into any particular vendor in order to get familiar with things, or are you vendor agnostic?
I'm vendor agnostic now, but when we were going to through school, there was just Cisco at that point, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Cisco was how you got into networking. So then, since then, there's so much other companies. There's so much different ways networking has changed to so that you have to widen your horizons. And now, it's just what solution fits the need, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm vendor agnostic now, but before it was Cisco, and still Cisco is the foundational pieces of networking. Because still mostly a lot of companies still use Cisco CLI routers and things like that. So you need to get into networking. You should have a Cisco base.
Right. So now, would you say, if, say I'm 21
Hmm.
and I graduated from high school. I've been out here in the work environment, uh, doing working odd end jobs, this, that, and the other, and I want to go into tech, and I stumble across you,
Hmm.
and I say to you, I want to get into tech, and Tim, and I ask you, and I say, what is it that you do, and how would you break that down to me, where I could start at a beginner level, to find out what it is that you do on a day to day, and where would you send me as far as information wise to go start doing my research?
Well, first question I'll probably find out is what they like about technology, right? Because there's so much, especially in IT, there's so many fields. Like me, if they wanted to get into networking specifically, I would say, at home, we'll set up a lab so that it's practical. To see if you really like it. Because a lot of folks try to get into IT for the wrong reasons, which is
Mm.
money, right? Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants money, but you have to actually, I think you should actually enjoy what you're doing, especially in this, or else it becomes a job. So,
Mm-hmm.
or they may not like networking, they may like databasing or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, first thing you have to make it practical. I would say, whatever they want to do, if they want to do networking, get yourself a router, Cisco router, switch, and set it up. And then we create a
Is there a
lab.
version of the router you would get?
I would get a 2600 series, something cheap, or
Mm-hmm.
we can draw out, see what they have right now, and maybe put something in a couple VLANs, something real
Mm-hmm.
basic to see if they understand networking and if they really want to go down that path.
Right, because I did the same thing. So I started with Cisco networking in Hawaii, and I when we moved to Seattle, I went to eBay
Mhm.
and I bought back. So back then, this is how you bought routers and switches.
on eBay.
If you were studying for the CCNP, you get the CCNP stack.
Mm-hmm.
If you're studying for the CCIE, you get the CCIE stack. So I bought a bundle for the CCNP because I was like, I'm going for the CCIE, but I know it take 5. At that time, it took 5 exams in order to pass to get your CCNP. And so I started playing with window boxes, Linux boxes on different VLANs, and
So
then
you could create a network.
I could create a network, but also to see if I could transport and block traffic. Because what was very confusing to me was, how do you determine where you put the access list on the port when it's coming in and out? Because it was it didn't make sense to what they were saying. I was like, if I'm sitting on my computer and I'm trying to get over there,
am I going in or am I coming out? Exactly.
Right. And then, so it was very confusing, and I everybody used to try to tell me, and I was like, that's just, it don't make sense to me.
Yeah. So yeah, that can be very confusing right there. But what was the question again?
Why you figure out the question really quick? So I've been in the server room. I like racking and stacking, but I'm OCD, so I like to organize all the stuff. But there also, I put in the chat for an alternative lab solution. Cisco has what they call Packet Tracer, and it's a virtual lab. And I found myself like really, really intrigued in Cisco Packet Tracer. So in my course last year, this is what we use to do our networking stuff. So you guys check that out in the chat as well.
Was it
GNS3?
Yeah, GNS3 is the other one that helped you do that. No, so it wasn't a question. It was more or less like, how do you get the person who, and it's not about just tech. It's like a person who's interested in networking. Because here's what I find everybody wants to be a coder, and if they're not a coder, they want to do cloud. But I mean, you can't do nothing on this earth computer wise without your network.
They need the network fundamentals, and I think that's some of the problem in IT, where, like you said, a lot of people want to go to cloud and don't understand what the cloud is. It's just somebody's on-prem network, right? So they start there, and then the underlying fundamentals, if you miss that, you got to start with networking. At least you got to know what happens when you put an IP address and you plug in a port. You know, what's actually
what is the IP address? What is DNS? You know, what are these ports that these services are running on?
At least that.
At least the basic.
At least the ports.
At least know what mail is. Yeah. At least know that.
And Google has some great Coursera, Google. They have some great like starter courses as far as how they explain the road, how you're on the road, and what happens on the road when it comes to networking. Really great classes.
And what I find is a lot of people get caught up in the big overall thing. Like, and when I say the big overall thing is, okay, once I understand networking, is there anything else for me? All right. So after you learn the fundamentals of networking, I know there are other things you can do, but tell the audience from your perspective of other things you can do once you learn the fundamentals of networking.
Well, from networking, you can kind of pivot a lot of places. You can go into automation, or you can go into security. A lot of folks that are in security know networking, they go hand in hand, because you need networking devices to secure the networking. And then from there, for me, networking has taught me a lot, because we're always guilty until proven innocent. Meaning, it's always the network. So we have to figure out, why it's not the networking. So ultimately, we have to understand how your device work, or your function, what's your needs from your application. So, that can be RDPing into a Windows box, or SSHing into a Linux machine, and, recreating the situation. So from there, that's why I think networking kind of force you to learn other things.
All right. Now, I want to give a shout out to Sims here. So we appreciate you $45. I can't say it's a super chat because it's a donation. And I think Dee been typing and shouting out everybody in the chat. We appreciate you for blessing us today with your $45 donation. Again, we try to bring y'all nothing but value. I see Donald, and also drop y'all questions if y'all got questions too. Donald said he's in networking right now. Joshua Jackson says love to take the gems y'all dropping and just love just subscribe. We appreciate you. JM does have a question. Would you recommend learning IPv6 very well, or is it not used as much in the real world?
It's not really used where I'm working or the environments I'm in, and there's a need for it, but it depends on what part, or where in networking you are. If you're going to be with ISPs or shops that are just strictly IPv6, I would say so. But understand how it works, understand the bits, understand where you can use it, and the functionality. But IPv4 is still here and it's very strong.
Right. Now, when I look at IPv6, I don't know too many people that are using it. It may be Google, it may be Amazon that's using it in their networks, but I don't ever see it. And when I do see it, I've only seen like maybe one or two jobs required that you understand IPv6. But that's in the last 5 years. Like this is not common for somebody to ask me about IPv6.
A lot of Windows machines are using IPv6, so I have to support it on our networks. But yeah, like you said, to your point, a lot. It's not everything is. A lot of things are still using IPv4 as a backup, so it's backup compatible. So you might have the option of IPv6, but if you don't have the need on your network, most people are picking IPv4.
Right. So now, with that being said, you said Cisco networking is a foundation. What would you recommend? What would you consider the cream of the crop? Like I've been talking to Palo Alto on their on some of their things. What do you consider the ones that are go to that are most reliable in networks as far as a vendor?
I think that right now, I think depending on your needs, it comes down to support though. Most of the stuff is going to work, but when things break, who's going to give you the best support? And I don't know. I don't have a really picked a choice, because you can get a regular box and throw some software on it, and that was, because switching is down to commodity base, right? So, everybody's using the same chips, the same hardware, right? So the only thing that's different now is your comfortability with the support or the software,
the interface.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you can have black boxes out there where you write your own code and just control these devices right now. So from a support standpoint, Cisco still gives you really good support. Arista had an issue with them not too long ago, and they really took care of us. Palo too. So the big boys, will always have the best support. But as it comes down to the hardware, from a firewall standpoint, I will, still go with Palo. That's what, but depends on your needs.
And depends on your budget.
Yeah, your budget too. Exactly. It depends on your needs, the budget, and the build, right?
Yeah. Right. So here's a different question. So home network, automating your home. What would you recommend for like a router at home, setting up your VLANs? What would you go with now?
So I would say if you want to have some fun, use pfSense. There's a lot of functionality on that.
And that pfSense that you're talking about building, is that buy or build open? Because I know it's open source.
Yeah, so I would say build it. Get you, depending on your needs on your network, you could get yourself a small little box that you could throw some Linux on. Throw the software on there. 2, 3, 4 interfaces, depending on how big you want to build it out, and get familiar with that at home. And then depends if you got like a Cisco shop, get yourself a Cisco switch, maybe a 12 port, 24 port, old one, and something that you can just log into and recreate stuff. Sometimes you want to check out something, see if it works. You just log into your own little lab and set that up. But router standpoint, you can get yourself a Netgear It all depends on your needs of your house.
Everybody I've been talking to, they've been talking about ubiquity.
Ubiquity is good. I haven't dealt with them in probably like 5 years. But when we deployed those Wi-Fi, it was pretty strong.
Gotcha. Now, your networking, you are a graduate of the DeVry
The
University.
illustrious DeVry University.
The illustrious DeVry University.
Oh no.
Yes, we are.
DeVry needs some more props. They get a bad rap.
They,
DeVry was good to me. I can't lie. DeVry was good to me. Until I went to DeVry, I didn't touch anything physically. You know, it was a lot of theory before that. DeVry made a lot of stuff practical. So
yeah,
wasn't bad.
and my experience with DeVry was I was hands-on doing computer engineering, but I mean, no 4-year university or DeVry, no one was preparing me to be a Linux administrator. You know, I understood how to troubleshoot. I understood how to set up resistors in parallel, and you know how to create a transformer, how to set up my own little Java network with a server and a client, you know, and do that. But nothing. It didn't prepare me for what I had to go to in terms of, hey, you need to sit down here at this terminal and build us out an NFS server. You need to then set up users to use this NFS server. By the way, we got a cluster that you got to maintain. Nothing about me getting my computer engineering degree prepared me for that. But what DeVry did prepare me for was uh, a couple of things. One, some people didn't know what in the hell DeVry was. They was like, what is DeVry? Guy was like, I ain't never heard of that college. Like, I've been in interviews and people have been like, I ain't never heard of that college. I was like, you know, the commercial on TV, right? And then the other one was the guy. Some people were like, well, what kind of classes do they have? Right? And then the third one was they were shocked that I knew more than that their students that graduated from 4-year colleges knew about their network and their Linux boxes and stuff, because those kids that were coming out of the 4-year schools, like your Yales, your Carnegie Mellons, your Harvey Mudds, your Duke or whatnot, they didn't have those skill sets. They had theory, and they had
hands on at DeVry. Eric, Tina's husband Eric went to DeVry, and when I was going through the training with him for his company, it was like first thing he brings out is the equipment. Like, you need to put your hands on this equipment. I'm sending you this. I'm sending you this, and I'm sending you this. Like, that's first for him as well.
Yeah, it's very practical.
Yeah, and Donald Watt said you went to DeVry too. The side was it was expensive, right? But I can honestly say, and I had to calculate this too. I got started late. You know, I graduated college when I was 32, so I got started late. I got married at 25. Spent 6-7 years going to college, so I was 32 when I graduated from college, right? And I started at 49,000 in 2007, right? And then by the time 2000, but going into 2009, I got to the DMV in October of 2008. So I had moved from 49,000 to 115,000, and that was within a year and a half. So you could look and say DeVry didn't do anything, but it did. It gave me the degree that people couldn't deny me. That's one, and then two, my own efforts into continuously to reinvent and educate myself made that happen. That's
so
what
I have a question. Can I ask a question for Adrian?
Yeah.
So Adrian, we know the answer, but I just want to get your perspective. How valuable is continuing education in your field? Like, how much do you invest in continual education?
Me, not as much.
Not as much. Or do you just do the job training, on job training?
Exactly, because I'm learning. We're touching cutting edge stuff, and I'm learning on the spot. So, and then if I need to, take a course on something, I will. But for the most part, um, in my field, we're not really siloed. Like I can log into servers, I can log into security devices. I have that type of access.
Mhm.
So, and then where I work, we're buying cutting edge stuff, so I get to play with stuff. So I'm working with the vendors, and they're showing us how to use this stuff on the spot.
Okay.
So
Now, do you want to share where you work, or is that like we're not talking about that?
we could hold on that.
So here's another question. When you're learning at work, do you take notes? Do you journal what you do, or do you just you've done it for so long that all the command lines are similar to each other?
No, I take notes, got cheat sheets, where, things depending on what part of the network, if you're troubleshooting and what you want to look at, you may want to keep a couple commands on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, we're implementing at the same time. So, or we're designing, so we'll draw it out, and then go through it, and then probably create a small lab with it and start to implement things. So depending on what we're doing, it's not a lot of writing down stuff. We'll document things, but after that, we're going to implement.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Gotcha. Now here's a different question. When you're studying or when you're looking at talking to vendors, because this is another conversation that we have. What do you look for in vendors when you're? Because I'm assuming that people come to you and ask you, "Hey, what do you think about this vendor? What do you think about? What are you looking for in a vendor from a business perspective when you're talking to them?"
so I'm looking at how long they've been in business, their support, and their reliability, from a business standpoint. And then from a technical standpoint, I just want to make sure that this whatever product you're putting in front of us, what's the growth pattern? Is it going to be around for a while? And if it's going to solve the problem,
Now,
basically.
now, how do you know if it's going to be around for a while? Do you just ask them, or?
You see by the history on, or what's it, networking is not really changing that much. So
Mhm.
whatever you're buying out there is probably been out there. It's just probably a different flavor. So
Mhm.
you just see who's doing it great right now, and it may come down to comfortability. If you're a Palo shop, you may stay down a Palo path, or it's just throwing that out there. Or if you have a specific need for that product, that may be the determining factor of why you pick it.
All right, so I'm gonna ask this question because we get asked this a lot. Should you, if you want to start off with networking, should you learn the A+ first? Should you take the A+ first?
Depends. It depends on where you're starting, right? If you can't pass the A+, yeah, you should start with A+. But a lot of people, when they go to networking and they want to get to networking, they've done past that. Now they want to, they started playing with stuff and like, oh, what is this? But so you should have A+. You should be able to pass the A+ to go into networking. Absolutely. If you can't pass the A+, then yeah.
All right. Now, once you pass the A+, this is always the ultimate question that we always ask every network engineer. Do you know what the OSI model is?
Yeah.
Is that one of the fundamental? I think that's just one of the fundamentals of tech.
Yeah, you have to understand the OSI model.
Right. So you want to break it down what the OSI model is?
Yeah. So it's a 7-layer model, right? So you start with the physical. Physical is just a word there, but what is the physical? So you have the copper, it's the media, how you physically connecting or you're bringing in that information, whether it's wirelessly or through some sort of physical media. So after that, you move up to the switch layers. All people seem to need network processing, right?
What is that called? What do they call those things? It's not. It's not a palindrome. It's not a palindrome. I forget what they call them. That's just how you remember the stack, right?
Yeah. So the next, and then also at the physical layer, you have hubs, right? That's the a hub was a device that connected, and it was in the same collision domain, right? So then after that, you move up the stack, and you get to the data link layer, right, where you
Mhm.
have MAC addresses switching. Um, and at that layer, that's your layer two level, right? So layer two, it's all about switching. After that, you go to your layer three level where routers live. Routers make decisions on IP addresses, where on a layer two, the decisions are made on MAC addresses. After that, then you go to the TCP layer, right? The
Mhm.
transport layer, where you're talking transport, which is TCP, UDP, IP. Um, then after that, you go to the session layer, I believe. The session layer is
I always looked at the session layer just like connections, like
so in networking, after the layer three and layer four, that's most of the time, all of that is handled. You're passing that off. It's not your responsibility at
right.
that point. The next time they're talking to you is probably at the application, so you understand, what protocols you're using or what IPs you're using.
Right. And one of the things about the OSI model, right, that I still take with me is I take the two things that I take with me out of science and out of the OSI model is actually the scientific method
Mm-hmm.
and the OSI model. I put all of them together for troubleshooting, breaking down stuff, how to find out what problems are at. That's my scientific model is what I'm taking with me every step of the way when I'm troubleshooting anything, whether it's physical, whether it's an application, whether it's some port, some firewall, or something. I'm taking that with me. And the OSI model is just me going up the stack and being like, oh, so this ain't your
Exactly.
fault. This ain't your fault. This is this fault over here
Exactly.
that's causing this, and going from there. So that's usually how I'm operating. Now you
So
did
can we say that that's like troubleshooting one on one? Like it's always going to go back to the network, because I know when I'm working with vendors, it's just
well
like,
below the network. I mean, I won't say go to the network. I want to say use the entire stack. Like,
mhm.
I mean, like this is why it's so funny to me, because when you call Dell, they be like, is it plugged in? Did you turn it on and off? Like
They're
those are
starting at the bottom.
they
They're starting
start
Yeah,
at
at
the
the
based on
bottom.
it. I mean, and when you're trying to troubleshoot something with the vendor as well, they're going to go back to the basics. It's like Linux. Like when you go to the house, what's in the house that's broken? Where is this traffic going? What is the IP block? Like it's always those same questions. So it's important to have a network understanding.
Well, not just a network understanding, it's a OSI model
It's
understanding,
it's
right?
the it's the stack, or what
Yeah,
we say.
because here's another example. You could get a cable, a network cable, and the network cable endpoints are bad, or the cable got a kink in it.
Hmm.
So that's not necessarily a networking thing. That's a physical
That's a physical layer.
physical layer thing. So you
Mm-hmm.
may need to switch out your actual cable, or it could be that your NIC card is bad,
Mm-hmm.
or you could get a short. It could be a short on in the system itself that's kicking, that's causing that NIC card to fluctuate back and forth on power. So it could be a number of things, but I'm saying being able to look
Understand
at
that.
look at each individual piece separately and not as a collective, where you're just going up and down that stack until you can get to it, right? Like, one of the things I always do, like, is it a DNS issue? I'm like, oh, let me find out what the IP address of this
Exactly.
is. Oh, I can get there by IP. Okay, so it's not,
Exactly.
so it's some kind
Exactly.
of DNS issue here.
Mm-hmm.
What DNS server are you pointing to? Oh, you pointed to a DNS server that don't exist no more. Okay, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
So now we need to fix your DNS. So I'm always doing something like that.
And that's when it comes down to understanding how things work, right? You can't
Mm-hmm.
just stay siloed in networking and just know from layer 1 to layer 4, right? You got to
Mm-hmm.
understand how the application works on your network,
Right.
so you can support that.
Right. And I'm assuming you're showing us the OSI model, D.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
right now we're talking about one, which is the physical layer.
Mm-hmm. And then too, another thing that often happens too is somebody will get a switch and they don't reset it, or it's not set properly. You know what? That's not set properly, and so they'll have VLANs set up in on those switches, and
Mhm.
then those VLANs you can we're not letting you out. You supposed to be here in this VLAN. You can't go nowhere. And
Exactly. So you got to factory reset that or
right,
password recover it,
right. And people get stuff and they don't factory reset stuff. So yeah, we're always going. Even me as a Linux administrator, when even in the cloud, when I'm looking at stuff, I'm like, well, what's the subnet mask here and what's the subnet mask there? And can these two networks talk to each other? Oh, they can't talk to each other. Oh, okay. Well, we need to fix that. We need to fix where these networks can talk to each other. How are we going to fix that? That these two networks can talk to each other. So I'm always looking at that as well too. So that networking piece is going to always you're gonna always be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just common. It's just gonna be like it should be like osmosis to you.
It's your fundamental. It's your
Right.
base.
It's just like, oh, it ain't working. Let me check some. I don't have no IP. When you see 169.254, and you know you supposed to have like a 192,
Mm-hmm.
168 or something, 10.15, whatever the case may be, then you better start asking questions. And I did that the other day with you.
Yes.
I did that the other day with you. I was like, I'm getting a 169. I ain't getting no IP. What's up?
Exactly. Once you told me that, I said, okay, that's something I need to fix.
All right, so he had a question in here, and it was about a juniper versus something, and I saw it. I saw it. Let me see. Let me find it here. I don't know where it went. Oh, here's Cisco versus Juniper. Your take on which to go for?
Uh, they're different CLIs, so it's all personal preference. Me, I don't have too much experience with Juniper, so I can't say that's one of the vendors I've never really had too much experience with. But I would say Cisco if you want to learn have more exposure to other things because a lot of other vendors use the Cisco flavor of CLI, so you'll understand more. So you'll be able to understand like Arista or some Dell OS and different vendors like that.
Yep. So I have experience with Juniper. I'm partial to Cisco, but because that's where I got my start at. But I do like Juniper. But here's my take on it. Go with whatever's gonna pay your bills. Go whatever's gonna pay your bills. You're gonna find some places are ripping out Cisco and putting in Juniper. Some are ripping out Juniper and putting in Palo Alto. Some are ripping out something and putting in something else. The thing that you got to remember when it comes down to the CLI, and then I go over this in my Linux classes, is I have a command, and then that command has options, and then you need to know what you need to do.
Exactly.
This
So
is it.
and to your point, as long as you understand the networking and the fundamentals, you could just Google to figure out what you want to do. Whether you want to show a route, show a BGP summary, everybody, if they had, you could Google that. As long as you understand where you're trying to go, how do you
Right,
say that word, right? Or
right,
how do you display this output?
right. The next question you had was, what do you say to the event of SDN, and is it a real worry for anyone that has probably been a network engineer for quite a while but lacks programming knowledge right now?
No. So SDN, when he says SDN, software defined networking.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the cloud or SDN is going to change. I think it's just going to add more people to networking. I don't think people are going to flip yet. I don't think we're at that stage. Um, Software defined networking, I like it. The one we were using, Arista just bought them, but Big Switch, it just worked. So it made things really easy. Whereas, you could plug in an ESX host and someone can spin up a VLAN and everything in the background was done automatically. Where it was just, once they picked the VLAN, we didn't have to do anything, So it kind of made me network dumb a little bit because, you're not doing anything, right? Once you set it up, this thing just works. So you should understand it, but as far as programming it, once the programs are made, like if somebody's making something Ansible and stuff like that, from networking, from where we work at now, they're giving us an interface where we just put in the information. We don't have to build out the playbooks and stuff like that. So if that's not your thing, there's still going to be other roles that need to be done because somebody's still going to need to push the button, and you still need to understand the underlying factors of how networking works.
Right. It says, does cloud networking interest or intrigue you as much as regular on-prem networking?
Cloud networking, not yet. It's no real. I mean, they're trying to standardize it, but it's so confusing. We're still trying to integrate a lot of stuff in the cloud and on-prem. I still like on-prem more,
because you got the physical touch. You can go to it, or
it's still, it's just more intriguing, to me. I'm still. The cloud, I think it needs a couple more years for everything to start getting standardized and, protocols start getting more mature. And then I think it'll become more scalable. But right now, there's still a lot of things are still basic. So
this is, do you agree that the way networking is taught makes it unattractive or boring most times?
Yes. You got to make it practical. You just can't start talking about IP addresses and stuff like that. The way I learned was real fun. Like we used to create pods, right? So like Tamika, you'll be over there, Dion will be over there, and you'll be in Australia, I'll be in US, and we'll have a couple routers. And at the end of the day, we set up our own thing, and then we got to communicate and share routes with each other,
right?
And that might be like a 3-week process because
because you're troubleshooting.
So that's what made it fun. Like, all right, we communicating with ourselves. Now let's try to share routes with this person. So you got to make it fun. That's why I go back to tell people they got to do it at their home. Make it practical at home. So that you can have fun with it. But networking could be boring. Anything with a lot of theory will be boring. So it depends on how you're learning it, which is going to make the difference. Another thing is I like packet tracing GNS3, but I think that should be used when you're going for your NP, not in the beginning. I think you need to make some noise and buy a couple switches and routers and, keep them on.
Take down your own network.
Exactly. Understand when I plug this in, what happens, why I have to wait, 30 to 45 seconds and things like that for this yellow to turn green. Kind of see the physical.
But the Cisco class walk you through like why it turns from amber to green, what's happening.
They did, and then when I got to see it, it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right. They walk you through that, but you don't realize that. I be looking at what I don't like about Mac laptops is I don't have a physical insert to the computer. I'm always wireless, right? And I like being plugged directly into my router because I'm getting everything. I'm getting all the bandwidth. I'm not getting all this airwave block communication or somebody got a microwave that's about to go off in there and then it's gonna cause
all this network congestion.
Yeah. Right, so I miss that part of having a laptop or desktop, if you want to say that from that perspective, because there's something about being able to trace what's going on with your laptop. Like when you're wireless, you're cool. You're like, do I get something? Yes. Is the wireless being broadcast? But I guess over time they've gotten better, but because back in the day, you could turn on a blender and then knock off.
Yeah.
It would knock off, or it was a 2.4 gigahertz, and you had to make sure that you was on a certain
Channel,
channel and
yes.
all of that stuff, right? And you get knocked off, so it's one of those things. Now, what I did want to say, now I don't know how you feel about this. We talked about your journey into certain network engineering and so forth. What do you see yourself, say, in 5 years from now? What do you see yourself?
From a network standpoint,
No, just you in general, just you as a person.
next 5 years, I think I'm going to shift from networking and do full time real estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I like construction right now,
Mm-hmm.
and more of the civil engineering side. So I think I see myself doing that.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about earlier on the show. Where I was showing folks about buying a business. We talk about real estate all the time, about what does it look like to buy a house or buy whatever the case may be. What is popular right now for you on the real estate side?
Short term rentals. Um, I do short term rentals throughout the United States, and that's been really good for the last 6 to 7 years.
Got you. Got you. Know when you define short term rentals.
Yeah, short term rental is typically a rental by the day, anything under 30 days. We do short term furnished rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So I provide furnished rentals for people from 1 day to 365 days throughout the United States,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're traveling, vacationing, various needs that people need short term rentals.
Right. Now, what about that? Because there's tech and then there's real estate. What about short term rentals or real estate got you making that transition? Right. So are you taking money that you've made in tech and then investing into real estate, or you just like, screw it, I'm just going all in on real estate. You just kind of just one day woke up and said, we're just doing real estate.
So I always wanted, while I was in DeVry, I met a guy, shout out to Will Warren, and he broke it down to me while we were in some networking classes, how he bought a house and he was living in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And he was renting out upstairs. He was living in like 400 square feet, and he was renting out upstairs. And he was just telling me the math while we just go through these labs. And he would just tell me like, yeah, they're paying me $900 and my rent is like 400 or something like that. And to me, I was like, that's a no-brainer. Then he said, yeah. Then I bought a house down the block, and then I put someone else in there, and I did a daycare. And he was just showing, like, just basically explaining, if you just buy something cheap and then put somebody in there or rent it out, you can be profitable. So then from then on, I always thought about getting into real estate. I said, that's what I wanted to do. But, obviously you need some cash to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to do some research, and I learned how to leverage money that I had and buy real estate. So I actually bought my first house with my retirement. And I was taught how to buy real estate with a 401k or IRA. And then that's what kind of propelled me into getting into real estate.
The first loan you can get, because it's not going to be counted against you. And actually, you can do that. When I was doing some research, you can actually buy a house every 2 years out of your 401k, because it's treated as treated as a first time home buyer out of that 401k.
And speaking about the 2 years thing, a lot of people don't know, if you buy a house and it's your homestead, you can buy a homestead every 2 years and put 3 to 5% down. Meaning if you live at A and then 2 years later you move to house B, you could put 3 to 5% down. House A becomes a rental property that helps you pay for house B.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so now would you recommend ever doing long term?
I don't do any long term because and people ask me why I don't do long term, because with long term, I've had bad experiences where you think just getting paid is one thing. I had a tenant that would pay me every month.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I'm thinking everything is fine
Mm-hmm.
until we went to that house and we seen that it was being trashed. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what got me into short term, because in a long term rental, this is what I tell folks, especially from an investment standpoint, there's a ceiling, right? If your rent, for example, is 10,000 a month, the
Mm-hmm.
most you can make is 12,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's before washing machine don't work, something is stopped up,
Mm-hmm.
AC doesn't work, and then after the 12 months, let's say that tenant wants to leave.
Mm-hmm.
When they leave now, you go into the house, you think you're bringing someone in next month. No, you have 2 months worth of work now because their dog was chewing up something for years now,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So now you just lost 2 months in that. So you still have to pay whatever money, the holding cost for that. So
Mm-hmm.
now instead of getting paid for 12 months in the next year, you're only getting paid for 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that risk again. So versus with a short-term rental, someone's going to be in that house at least every week or when that person leaves to inspect that house. And if something goes wrong, we're going to fix it immediately. So we kind of see what's going on and get a better handle of your property.
Gotcha. So I hope y'all got that. So long term versus short term. You also got the tidbit on buying a house and homesteading, right? So every 2 years you can be adding an asset. I talked about this before. I also spoke about, hey, I get a sign on bonus for my job. It's $50,000. I get 30,000 of that. What am I doing with that 30,000 right now? I got it sitting in my bank account. What am I doing with that?
It ain't doing nothing in your bank account, I can tell you that much.
Right.
The bank is paying you 0.0.0.01%, right?
Correct.
And lending it out at like 20. The banks are the real crooks here. The banks is where you make the money. Meaning, you want to become the bank. So don't put that money in the bank. You want to put it into an asset that's going to generate some more money, especially depending on, your age and if you can, in your risk. Me, I would say put it into some real estate, because with real estate, even though the market is softening right now, 90% of all millionaires or people that are successful have their money in real estate. And the numbers prove that. Real estate, everyone's waiting for the market to crash. It's not gonna. I don't think it's ever gonna really crash no more, because why it crashed was people were getting loans and not really qualifying for them. Now you still have to get qualified for the loan, so you have to look and see if you can afford it. So from that standpoint, I will always say, go into real estate and hedge your money against that, because year over year, things are improving right now, and you get the equity, plus you get the ownership, where you can't create land. I tell people this all the time: you can't create it. It's the only thing that you cannot create.
Right.
You cannot create land.
Right, unless you're in Dubai.
You create land out there?
Yeah, they've been putting up the sand dunes, but it changed. But that sand that they built for their new land, and they haven't finished the construction. They actually stopped the construction. They actually changed the weather pattern in Dubai. That's why they got all this fog, because it changed the weather pattern. So they actually stopped creating more land out there, and now the stuff that they did have is starting to sink. So again, they did some and now they lost some, right? But yes, I do agree with. Again, I tell people you need to find out what the different asset classes are, and then figure out what asset class works for your budget. But right now, I think real estate is just one of those things that it's just gonna be continuous. You're gonna always, it's just gonna always be there. You're gonna always, somebody gonna always need a place to live. I've been reading up on stuff about funeral homes. People like invest in some funeral homes because people can always pass away, right?
That is true.
So there are a lot of people out there investing in funeral homes as well too. So that's another alternative, right? The life versus, yeah. So that's one of those things. Somebody had a question here. No. He said, "Oh, okay. If I use the FH loan on the first home,
Mhm.
yeah. So, so short term rental. Would you suggest buying any land?
Yeah, yes and no. Depending on, see, if you buy land you have to build on it, right? Or it
Mm-hmm.
depends on what you're going to do with that land, right? So depending on how fast you want to get into real estate, I think a land plays for someone a little more seasoned or
Mm-hmm.
sophisticated. If you just want to get into real estate, I would say to buy something that's mostly done or needs like a slight cosmetic rehab so that you can get a quick win, without losing your shirt in the process, because you're gonna learn as you go. Nothing in real estate is perfect, I can tell you that.
Now, when you're automating your house and stuff, do you recommend Google or Nest or uh, uh, anything off of Amazon? You have any recommendation for automating?
Smart things, Samsung smart things, with Z-Wave, or Zigbee, that has worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's compatible with a lot of stuff out there. There's going to be a new automation standard coming out. I cannot remember the name right now, but they're working on that. And once that comes out and that becomes adopted, then I think home automation will start to take off. Right now, Z-Wave and Zigbee, they have their limitations. So they're kind of, we're getting as much as we can out of that,
Mm-hmm.
those protocols. But once the new protocol and the standards come out, I think home automation is going to change. But right now, I think Smart Things is a good product to
Okay.
work with.
All right. So no Google, no Nest, none of
It
that.
depends. I like things that all work together, where I can scale it, where I can integrate this to that. So I don't have to, on my phone, go through like four different apps. I can
Mm-hmm.
get everything on a single pane of glass. And I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of do that. I can get most things on a single pane of glass with Smart Things.
Okay. All right. Just making sure we're on the same page because I see a lot of people just use Nest or they'll use something else, right? Just make sure.
Yeah, but it depends what you want, like Nest, they got, I don't know the whole suite, but I know they got the thermostats. They probably do some door locks and stuff like that. If you get a Nest, you want to make sure like your Nest can integrate with something else that you had, so that you don't really
Mm.
want to fumble with a bunch of apps when you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at stuff.
Right. Got you. So let me see. We had a question here about what is the best path in your mind to achieve rural administration? Go take the RECXA certification. We actually do the classes every Wednesday, Javon. In terms of currently studying for the Microsoft Azure, it depends on what your end goal is. I tell y'all every week, like fundamentals. This is what I tell everybody. Um, Pick a cloud, any cloud at this
Hmm.
point. Having a foundation in Linux helps you more than you know.
Hmm.
Understanding security and security. When I say security, that could be a number of things there. That could be security of the operating system. That could be security of the network. That could be security of the application. But just understanding security as one of your foundations. And I'm not talking about getting security plus. I'm just saying just understanding just a foundational knowledge. And you could get security plus if you want to. And then I say pick an automation tool, any automation, Salt, Puppet, Chef, Ansible works. You can include Terraform with that. And then right now, everybody's big on Kubernetes
Hmm.
as a thing you need to know. And like those five are foundational skills that you can go take. And all these you can get for free on edX.org as study of foundational, right?
Hmm.
If you want to do a deeper dive, you can go get certification in those things. But just understanding those as a foundation gets you at least in a conversation to get an interview.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially Linux. Most of the CLI, is all built on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you know Linux, you know a lot.
Mm-hmm. Sim asked, are there any devices that he believes may compromise your network security?
Um, Please elaborate on that. Um,
I think Sim, I think what you're asking, are there any devices that would compromise your network security? Meaning like, uh,
there are like anything that you introduce can compromise it because you're bringing on risk.
mm-hmm,
So like if someone plugs a switch, or
mm-hmm,
access point,
mm-hmm,
if you it all depends on the situation, but yeah, there are devices that can compromise your network security, especially if they're not patched or they just bring risk.
mm-hmm. And then I guess CMC, I guess you're trying to get some you trying to get some curls or some waves. You got a bald head. I mean, what's going on? You trying to get you some? You trying to get some? What you trying to do?
Me?
Nah, I was talking about Sim. We keep talking about some. Him and D keep talking about curls, waves, and hair units. I was like, I ain't know. I was like, trying to get him something. All right, let me see what time we're at right here. Oh yeah, we at our hour mark. If there, D, do you have any more questions before we break out? Because I know he can't be here that long. I got him. I got him an hour. I know he itching. He got to check his phone.
I think Adrian is having a really good time. He's not even
I'm
fidgety.
good. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, he's having a good time. Because you guys are sharing a screen, I'm in the background and making your screen bigger so that we can see you guys have that conversation. But where you at on time, Adrian? And you want to stay? You ready to leave?
I'm good. I'm good.
You
Hang out
You
sure?
with y'all.
good?
You sure?
You rocking with the women in
I,
Linux?
you
I,
should. You should. 'Cause I don't,
we're gonna do a
I
little
don't
overtime.
want. Because I don't want to get you in trouble.
I gotta go barbecue though. I like that grill up, but we
Because I
good.
asked for some barbecue. I was like, I've been here. Can you believe I've been here, Dion? I ain't got no drinks made. I ain't got no barbecue. I ain't got none of that.
Ain't
I
no
cannot believe as much as the chaplains entertain. I cannot believe, but you know what? You went in there and was so low key with it. They were like, "Oh my gosh, she doesn't need anything. We don't
Yeah,
really have to
she good.
entertain her."
Yeah, she
But
does.
it's the weekend, Saturday. Y'all better get that grill going. Y'all gonna need to get that blender going. We need Doris on the drinks. Like, oh, y'all gonna have to show up tonight.
Doris said she ain't making drinks.
She
She
gonna
said
make you a drink.
We gonna get her some drinks. Don't listen to
Yeah.
Doris said, I'm over it. But I also want to touch on one last thing. When you are making your investments, are you long term? Are you doing long term plays, or these are just hey, I'm just want to get the money for right now. You don't care about the long term strategy.
I do what works, right? I do short term into long term.
Mm-hmm.
So I raise capital now for long term investments, and it all
Mm-hmm.
depends, but I have a mixed bag of investments, whether we're selling a house or we're refinancing it, we're buying a house, renovating it, and then refinancing it in a 30-year loan and putting it into the portfolio. It all depends on
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing at the time.
Now I've been seeing comments from people like, "How dare you go get a house and you actually get a 30-year mortgage? That's just crazy that you're getting 30-year mortgages." I've seen these articles floating around with people
Mhm.
on YouTube and stuff like that. I have my own thoughts. I think you do what best works for you,
Mhm.
but I also think you also need to be in the game.
Mhm.
And when I say be in the game, there's like these big things about people like saying don't buy a house, or if you buy a house, that's really not an asset for you because you're living in it. It's not an asset, and we hear all kind of stuff. What is your take on when I say those things? What are your thoughts on those?
I say if you want to get in, people ask me all the time how to get into real estate and stuff like that. If you're renting right now, you have to stop the bleeding.
Right.
You gotta own.
The hemorrhaging.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have to look at it, right? When you rent, you're just paying somebody else's mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to start paying your own mortgage so that you can, because there's interest and principal. The principal you're paying yourself,
Mm-hmm.
So every time you look at your mortgage statement, you look at interest and principal. You're like, all right, the interest is what's the cost of this loan, and the principal is what I just paid myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which turns into equity.
Mm-hmm.
When you rent, you still have to make that same payment, but you don't get none of that.
Right.
It's just money down the line. So,
And you don't even get no tax benefits like when you go to file taxes.
oh no.
Like I gave the story last week or week before last about, when I did move to Florida, and when I moved to Florida, I didn't own a home when I got down there, and so they were like, so H&R Block was like, yeah, you owe 10,000. And I was like, for what? They said, because you make too much money. I was like, how? How do I make too much money? Right? And so they was like, you need to have some type of a dependent or some type of asset. And I'm like, I don't have no kids. I mean, I ain't gonna produce nothing right now. Like I can't make that happen right now, to get rid of these taxes. So had to buy a house, right? And people will be like, well, it's not an asset. I'm like, it's an asset when you ain't got to pay Uncle Sam $10,000 back. It's an asset.
Oh, absolutely, it's an asset, and it's a asset that grows, over time. Most of the time you buy now, in a couple of years, especially where we're at right now, your asset or that property will gain value in like 10 to 20% year over year. So when you're ready to sell, or if you need to pull some cash out, you bought it at 200,000, you might, that house might be worth 300,000. You could probably pull 80,000 out of that idea just by holding it, just by, instead of renting, you'll be buying, just by doing that.
Right. And so, I don't know, what y'all hear out there in the land. I don't know who y'all pay attention to, but go buy you something. Go buy you some land, go buy you some property, a duplex, something. But don't sit here and keep analyzing and analyzing and analyzing. Now, are you into buying total tear downs? Or just like, hey, I'm getting something that's got minimum, and you want to be in it and get it up and running and out?
So I started buying cosmetics, but now we'll do full new builds. So it all depends on the cost and the performer of that project, and if it makes sense. But yeah, to answer your question, we'll do a new build, tear down, or from the ground up, or a cosmetic rehab when we're in there for like 3 to 6 weeks.
Now, I did a show earlier, and you know who popped up? St. Louis was popping up as number one, where people are making the influx to, and Alabama, St. Louis.
Not Ohio yet.
Ohio was not on that list, but you know how I feel about Ohio. I got to do my search when we get off of here to get Ohio going. But for you, when you think about the Midwest, do you like that Midwest for investing, or are you like, nah, I'm good on that? Because right now Southeast is where it's at.
I would invest anywhere if it made sense. It's just I like investing close where I'm at because my time. Yeah, because I'm gonna have to get to it and see what's going on.
Right.
So it's easier for me to drive, hour and a half north, south, east to west out here versus catching a flight every week. But it all comes down to if you have a good team, because we do these things, Pennsylvania and stuff like that, and I don't have to be out there every week because the team out there, I can trust the team. So if you have a good team, you can do it anywhere. But if you're going to start, I would say start close or somewhere where you can get some eyes on it, so you can understand what's going on.
When you talk about trust, what do you look for in trusting people when you're talking about these business ventures? What are you looking at on the trust side? Because everybody can look good on paper.
Yes. And I've learned that too. Be careful who you invest with. I tell folks that. You want to make sure that you think about exit strategy
Mm-hmm.
and be upfront about that. Like if we're gonna go to business together and somebody doesn't want to be part of it, how we're going to get out of it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's important. The other thing I look for is hunger. If somebody's going to, one plus one should make four. One plus
Okay.
one should make two. Meaning, my one, I'm gonna pull my weight, and then you're gonna pull your weight, and we're gonna combine together, right?
Mm-hmm.
The worst is when you go into a joint venture with someone, and then now you're doing most of the work.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to make sure that that person or that person you're going into with has something to bring to the table, because if you're not, then somebody's just going to get upset, and it's just it's not going to be, because you're like, all right, I'm doing all the work, right? So no
Mm-hmm.
one wants to do that. So you just got to make sure that you guys compatible. Y'all can complement each other.
Right.
You don't want to overlap. One person's good at one thing, one person's good at another, so
Mm-hmm.
that when I'm doing this, you're doing that, so we're moving forward much faster, because
Right.
it comes down to time.
Right.
That's what it really comes down to.
Time is money.
Exactly.
Right. How quickly can we get this on the market
Exactly.
and so forth. Right. D, that's all I wanted to add. I wanted to make sure we covered that. Did you have anything else? I know you and Sam
I
been
mean,
going
you asked pretty much like everything, and
there.
we invest as well. And because we know Adrian personally, um, I guess I can ask him like, what drew you to real estate? Like, what is the thrill? Because I know it's like it's something that you have a really really big passion from, and I've seen where it started from and how it's grown and how you continue to grow. So, what is the passion that fuels you with the real estate?
I think it's like engineering.
I think I like playing Monopoly. I consider this modern day Monopoly. And if you ever played Monopoly, when you have three houses that turns into, or four houses turn into a hotel and things like that. So I treat this as a big Monopoly board, and just trying to get, enough houses or enough pieces on that property, whether it's commercial, hotels, whatever, on it. So it's really a game to me at the end of the
Okay.
day. But I understand the game will bring, longevity and a legacy later on in life for my family, and change the way things are, where I'm going to teach other people how to make their money make money for you. When I was growing up, they taught us to work, right? But what's the end game? I didn't want to retire at 65. So the other thing is, I want to retire much earlier than the
Mm.
traditional. So in order to do that, you have to work from the back forward. And that's what I realized as well.
Well,
Okay.
what is working from the back forward mean?
Well, me, when you buy real estate, you create passive income. So I'm
Mm.
creating passive income, meaning we can have this conversation and you still can get paid. Versus active is if you're flipping a house, you have to go to your next job. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say we finish a job right now, we flip the house, is sold right now. In order to get paid, got to go find the next project, right?
Mm.
But when you create passive income, you get paid daily, monthly, weekly, and by doing that, then you don't have to work so hard, because all we're doing is exchanging time for money. So if I had more money, I get my time back.
Now, would you ever do a short term rental in a $1 million, $2 million home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I know some people like to stay in a certain range.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we run the numbers and see what, putting up that money, what does it return? And if
Mm-hmm.
it returns enough, we'll go after it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. D, anything
Um,
else?
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys touched on, buying your first home and then, using that first home to, if you've been there for over a year and getting another home and homesteading and stuff. But can you touch on like funding these deals? How did, where do you get the funds at for those deals, and how was it? What made it obtainable for you to say, oh, okay, I can do this? how are you structuring the funding for these?
Corner from the corner to the kernel.
So in the beginning, I was funding. First you have to have some skin in the game. So you have to understand what funding out there is, right? And now, just in like the last 18 months, you can get funding that's not based on your credit. So before or traditional funding, you have to have job history, good credit score, funds in the bank, and things like that. Now there's DSCR loans where folks should just look at the
Explain what that is.
debt service ratio loans. And basically, what that means is, right, they're looking at the deal. Instead of you, Dion, what your credit score is, we're looking past you. We're looking at what you're putting in front of us, right? And you're saying that I'm buying this house, and how much is going to make? Well, I'm buying it for 120. The mortgage is going to be 840, and the rent is 1400. So you're going to cash flow almost 500. That's what they're looking at. That's net positive. Okay, we'll lend you the money. So that's one way now folks are be able to get money much easier.
Okay.
Before it was much
Now
harder,
is that
much
considered an investor loan? And do you have to have so many properties under your belt before you can get that type of loan?
that's an investor loan. You get better rates based on your history and how many deals you
Mhm.
do. So yeah, but they will, you don't have to have 40 or 50 or whatever deals under your belt. You can just say, I have this deal, and they're just going to look at this deal and expect that, okay, if you're going to get this rent, and you're buying it, they know that you're buying it for this, you can pay us. So they're going to lend you. So now, it's a lot easier to get investor loans. But before, it would be based on your credit history, a lot of stuff. If you had too much loans in your name, it might throw off your debt to income ratio, which is basically how much money you make versus how much debt are showing on your credit report.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now that they took all that away, now you can, if you have 100 deals and you can pay for it, then you should be able to get 100 loans at said interest rate.
Awesome.
But this is but
Awesome.
that this is why I always go back to the everybody's like, if you're gonna buy a car, put it in your business name. When you go to like Mercedes or Jaguar or some of these places, those loans still have to be guaranteed. You still got to be the guarantor
Oh,
of
and
those
then,
loans, so they still show up on your credit. Uh,
depending on the loan.
Depending, but most of the time, like for example, like Mercedes, no, Jaguar, Range Rover, you have to have the business that you have has to have been at the time it was doing it, had to be 2 million for the past 3 years. You had
Mhm.
to earn 2 million for the past 3 years. So
For them to finance you.
for them to finance you for put it in your put it
Business
strictly
name
in the
solely
business name
without a
on
personal guarantor.
not without me being the personal guarantor.
Okay.
So, but I can get a car in the business thing, but I still gotta sign and be the guarantor of that. It's a business write-off,
Mhm.
no doubt, but it still goes against my DTI.
So, I'm the guarantor on all my loans, but just a couple come up on my credit report. Most of them don't. But underlining, through the bank, I'm the guarantor. Yeah.
Mm.
And somebody, banks are not, I don't know any banks. And if you find a bank that is doing that, let me know. They can lend you money without a guarantor.
Not since that last debacle. I mean, because
Mhm.
I have a mortgage background. I work with some of the biggest lenders, and I don't know. People know. I mean, I told them I have a mortgage background, but I went to mortgage processing school in Atlanta, and I did that, and I went to work for a broker for free. It was like, go work for a broker for free, and that was an independent broker. And then I worked for Wachovia in their construction perm department, and I worked for Countrywide Home Loans when they were big. And so I mean, I remember you can get a stated loan. What you put down on that piece of paper is what they gave you based on your credit score alone. They were
Wow.
handing out money left and right. So, I was in the industry before the crash and I got out before it crashed because I saw it was just some originators I wouldn't work with because I ended up going into business for myself. And I was just like, my conscience could not do some of the things that they were doing. And I worked for a correspondent lender and things of that nature. And, understanding, wholesaling, hard money loans. Now we have a whole bunch of crowdfunding. We have so many different types of financial sources and how you can invest in real estate. So we try to tell people here, like, even if you got $5, put $5 on something. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't do it on Adrian's level, you can do it at a $5 level and just put your money in something if you haven't made a move. You know what I'm saying? Because it's come so far from just 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
on how you fund deals and who you can partner with to fund deals, different types of deals. So there's
Mm-hmm.
something out there for everybody. These things that
Exactly.
we are talking about are obtainable.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, D, we're gonna wrap it up. I hope everybody had got something out of it. We brought you a senior network engineer, somebody who's actually doing investing as well too, and he heard across the country, and you got a chance to understand the journey as well too. And what we're both DeVry graduates, so I mean, here we are, right? Two kids from two different perspectives of tech. One's an engineer, the other one is a Linux administrator. If you want to break it down to the basic levels, I do DevSecOps, but if you want to just say fundamentally, and making your way in having money in tech and then invest in it, right? Um, I try to get you all to 200K for a reason. He always gives me a hard time about that. He's like, everybody ain't able to do that. I was like, yeah, but everybody ain't able to have $1 million in assets either, right? Right. So it's got to be one or the other. But the goal is to get you in the room where you're able to talk to investors, private equity, hedge funds. Be that person um, that you want to see and be, but also change the dynamics of people around you. I hope I've influenced you, Adrian,
Of course.
and vice versa. And together we'll keep trying to influence others. I'm not. I've been talking to. Is she your niece?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, no, she's my goddaughter.
she's your goddaughter. So I've been talking to his goddaughter about investing and putting money up, and I gotta sit down with her tonight before I get up out of here, so she can get her first Apple share. I'm getting her an
Yes.
Apple share and a Tesla share, and she was like, "So once I said, and you can buy this for $5 a month, $10 a month." I was like, "Just put $10 a month on each one of them. Every time you get paid, just put $10 on them."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Well, what I'm gonna do with the money after it build up?" I was like, she's like, "But I want to go on a trip." I was like, "You need to make that a business trip.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make that a business
We'll
trip."
show her.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just being able to talk to people and show stuff and make long term plans or short term plans, how whatever your comfort level is, but understand that it's money to be made out here, it's assets to be acquired, and there's things that we can do that are very easily can be easily done. It's not out of our reach that we can't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing first is, if you're not going to buy a house, at least buy a duplex. If you're not going to buy a duplex, at least buy some land. If you're not going to buy land, at least buy something in an asset class. Gold or silver, I don't care, right? Or stock. Like I say, you may not have money to go buy land, but you got $400 somewhere to go buy some shares of a stock or ETF, and just keep building from there. But you got to get in the game.
The other thing I want to tell people is too, if you're renting and you're looking, a lot of people want to hit the home run first. I tell folks, um, buy a two bedroom. If you might want the four, but start off small, stay there for 2 years, and then that after 2 years you probably change your job, or something changes in your life, and then you can buy something else. But if you're going to wait to that perfect opportunity, you're just going to be waiting a long time. So you should try to stop it right now, get into something that you can afford, and then another 2 years later you buy another house, and that first house becomes your rental property, and that's how you get started.
Yeah. Somebody said this is gold. They're gonna listen to the replay, showing folks how to actually get in the game for this long-term game plan. That's correct. Oh yeah, folks missed the Amazon split. The other Yep. You and PJ and J. Tesla has split. I don't know what 3 or 4 times in the past year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Tesla.
Probably.
Yeah.
Twice this year. Earlier this year they split, and then they split again 2 days ago.
Yep. So we got Tesla. We got like I say, Apple is returning me 30%. Uh, I'm still in, and I showed your goddaughter where Warren Buffett has his money at. I was like, look, he bought $600 million worth of Apple stock in Q1, and then he turned around a couple of weeks ago in July and bought 3.9 million more shares of Apple. Oh, and he's also invested in Coca-Cola. I think he got like 18 billion or 25 billion dollars worth of shares in Coca-Cola. So go buy Coca-Cola. Everybody drink. You see Coca-Cola, just buy you a share. And if you can't buy a share, you can buy $5 worth, right? Just stick to the things that if you're conservative and you don't like risk, stick to the things that have been working. If Warren Buffett is worth $100 billion, I don't mind doing whatever it is he invested in. If it's a company I recognize, I just go buy it.
He in the dividends. That's what Warren Buffett is in. He's in the dividends.
Of course, he's in the dividends.
That's
but
what That's what when we were talking about it last week, and when I was reading through, you asked the question like, how did he start in the business? And I was reading about the textile business and stuff, and it just gave some little blurbs, and I was like, makes plenty sense. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. But
you can't get a dividend if you ain't in the stock.
You ain't in. You can't get no dividend. Because I like my little Cash App saying I made my little dividends on my little Apple stock that I got in there. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You if you can buy a slice on Charles Schwab, if you could buy a slice or a fractional, I think it's fractionals in Fidelity, and Charles Schwab is slice, and it's $5 to get in. If you can buy it for $5, just keep putting your little $5 in there instead of going to QT or whatever you go to get the big gulp or buy some ice cream. Put them $5 over there, and that's a big gulp. That $5 going, that's a real big gulp.
That's that Starbucks. That's what I said. If you got a cable bill, you need to not have one. Like if you are paying for a cable bill, cable is like $300 a month, right?
I don't know what it is, but I know it's too high.
If you got a cable bill, you got some fun. If you got and you can also look at your cell phone bill, because a lot of people don't realize that plans change over time, and they're not going to call you to say you can change your plan now. You even got to look at your cell phone bill every like 6 months to see if you can to change your plan, or if you need to go in a business thing or anything like that. Like there's so many savings if you just kind of sit down. Tam, you just scrubbed your subscription services, right? Just went through all your subscriptions.
I went through them, but I ain't cut them all off yet. I'm still debating on who I'm cutting off. I was just going to say, I was talking to Doris. She's like, "Why do you have a cell phone?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know why."
Because she needs to call. You need one in 2020. She need a cell phone because she needs a cell phone. She need Wi-Fi, so she need a cell phone. She can get a hotspot, but she gonna lose that.
That's it. All I need is a hotspot. Other than that, I don't call nobody. And I don't
When that
answer.
tablet dies, she needs to be able to call somebody. So everybody need a phone. If she don't have a landline, you need some type of telephone
Okay,
today.
I just do the landline then. And don't go nowhere.
Oh, landline, no.
You don't need no
Not
landline.
doing that. We are not doing that.
But you know, as always, we want to bring you people that are real life. Like, we're technologists.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian's a technologist. That's what he does. That's his
I'm
9 to
pregnant.
5. But he's also an investor. You know, he has a passion for real estate. So, you know, this is what we do. We bring people in there that are talking the talk. It's obtainable. It's very obtainable. So thank you, Adrian, for
And I
finally
woke up.
being here.
I woke up his neighborhood with my Porsche when I came over here. It was loud.
Oh, it was pretty loud. Yeah.
But we appreciate you for coming out, Adrian.
Thanks for having me.
And hanging with us. It's been years in the making, but we did it.
I know.
We did it.
We can't make this the last one though.
No, man, we're gonna we got to get the class.
Okay.
We got to make the class, so that we could get you automated.
Mm-hmm.
Get you literally automated and going through the process, right? So we'll stay tuned. We'll be on the lookout for that. Now it's time for me to eat. I haven't had anything to eat all day. It's 4, and I got my water sitting here, so I need to drink more of my water here. So we appreciate y'all for hanging out. I hope you got some good gems on it, and we'll see y'all on Wednesday. For those that'll be in the Russ class, I'll see y'all tomorrow. For those that are going to be at our Wednesday meetup, be prepared. We'll be going through Linux and Terraform and Ansible and GitLab and all and Agile process. Be ready. All right. Until then, everybody, y'all be safe.
All right.
Have a
Take
good
care.
one.
All right now.